Hi, welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to do my January wrap-up. On the first day of the year, I read 2 books, and one of them I really enjoyed. This was Terry Blackstock's Catching Christmas. So I read this at Chantel's recommendation, and I did really enjoy this. It was so cuddly. On the New Year's Day, I just cuddled up and read a lot of the day. It was really nice, and this was such a sweet book. Yes, it's very reminiscent of Gilmore Girls, the sweeter side of Gilmore Girls, and but I love how she brought faith into it, and it was introspective but very sweet and relaxing, and yeah, very much a comfort read. So I liked that a lot. Okay, and then the second book that I read on New Year's Day is this Bridge to Terabithia by Katherine Patterson. I was very disappointed in this book. I had heard that it was written by a Christian author, and I did not walk away thinking that affected the book at all. I do not know if she was a Christian. I would not have guessed that. This is a book that I've heard that children in public school are often read aloud to, maybe around 4th grade, and that they enjoy. And I'm wondering if it's because they do so little good books in school, or maybe they have an emotional experience because there is one of the characters dies, so maybe they cry and are emotional about that, and so they think it's a good book. I don't think this is appropriate for 4th graders. I didn't enjoy any part of it. I didn't like the characters. I didn't like the family, how they all were basically mean to each other most of the time. I didn't like the cussing. The dad cusses a few times. His teacher takes him on a sort of like a one-on-one field trip, which is kind of a little weird. And she cusses, and there's just lots of elements that I don't care for. His family is supposedly a Christian family, and they in no way do they portray anything about Christianity in any kind of understandable way. They go to church once a year on Easter, and the older sisters just parade their clothes around, and there's really nothing about it. I think the death is handled in a poor way. So if this is supposed to be a problem fiction novel, it certainly doesn't help anybody. It wouldn't be helpful to children, in my opinion. It was a 1 star. This was a terrible book. I am so glad I read it so that I would not give it to my children ever, because it's just not worth it. So yeah, I did not like this book at all. I did not care for it. There was one part that I was moved by my emotion, and that's when the mother thinks that the main character, the son, died too, and then he returns from his secret field trip, and so they know that he's not dead, and I felt for that as a mother, but just overall, it was very disappointed in that book. So good to know. Okay, second disappointing book of the year, Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society by Mary Ann Sheffer and Annie Barrows. I did a rant, review, whatever video. This is a 1 star. It was no good. Okay, the next one was, I read the first, so this is Stories from the Fairy Queen by Mary McLeod, and we read the first story out of 6, which was the story of the Red Cross Knight. And now we're reading Edmund Spenser's The Fairy Queen, this story, the Red Cross Knight, or I guess it's just called the Red Cross Knight. So anyways, I enjoyed this a whole lot. Me and my husband and my 6-year-old, we all 3 enjoyed it a lot. So it really surpassed my expectations. I didn't really know what it was about, but we really liked it a lot. Okay, the next couple are some we did for homeschool. This is The Columbus Story by Alice Dalgleish. And so this is kind of a picture book type story. It has some full pictures. Oh yeah, there's a big full picture. We enjoyed this one all right. It was probably a 3.5, 4 star. It was a cute book. It was fine. I would say it's not as good as the D'Aulaire's Columbus. I like that one more. Here is Leif the Lucky by Ingrid and Edgar Perrin D'Aulaire. I really thought this one was very interesting. I did not know much about the Norse explorers, and so all of that was very interesting. And it was also very fascinating how they like learned to sail and had these great ships, and then later it's almost like they forgot some of that technology, so then later they weren't as much a sailing people. And so it's just fascinating how they the technology declined, and like for hundreds of years then it was just very different. So but yeah, we enjoyed that one a lot. I love the Daulaire artistry. So they have black and white pictures on some pages, and I thought all of their kind of like Norse symbolism or yeah, iconography was very cool. And then they have color pictures on other pages. So anyways, I thought that was a cool book. All right, the next one I read, this was also a recommendation from a Chantel, and I've seen it on several of the Christian booktubers in that community, I guess. This is Fox by Nadine Brandes. I did enjoy this a lot. When I was close to the end, I felt like it was a 5-star, but then right at the end, I don't know if I can exactly put my finger on it, but there was something that didn't seem like it was finished. So I don't know, maybe a 4 or 4.5 star. I guess I was kind of guessing what the light, could represent, and then I feel like it never resolved that, and I was still confused. So that was the one thing that threw it off. But yeah, it's a very interesting book, and I did enjoy it. So probably I would enjoy it more on a second read now that I know it didn't complete that thought, and that's something I'm still thinking through my mind what I think the light or the white light is. So, but yeah, it was a neat book. I love that picture too with the glowing. So yeah, really cool book. All right, and here's one I read with my 6-year-old. This is called Basil, or Honesty in Industry by Charlotte O'Brien. This is a lamplighter book. This was a fun book. It was about a boy who his family, he and his family learned to be more honest. They had kind of not been, his father had been drinking and spending a lot of their money that way, so they were kind of poorer and not taking care of themselves as well as they could have. So they were, learning. At the very beginning of the book, his parents sent him out to steal firewood from a forest or something, from a certain person's land, and he prayed that he wouldn't have to steal because he didn't want to steal. And God answered his prayers, and just different people they interacted with. It was really cool. And then there's sort of this side thing that was interesting to me. It was talking about chestnut trees and how he found some ripe chestnuts and took them home and fed his family with that. And I just thought that was so interesting because I had just read this thread online about the American chestnut tree and how they used to, the chestnuts used to help lots of people who were impoverished. They would eat it, they would send livestock, or I think it said especially pigs, into the woods, and they would eat chestnuts. And so it was a really good free way for people to have some food. And anyways, the American chestnuts they were beautiful giant trees, but now they have mostly been destroyed from, I think, imported trees and plants from other countries through New York. I think it was some Chinese plants that were imported through New York, so there was some kind of fungus or something that killed a lot of them. And so I had just been reading about that, and then the first thing in here, it was talking about exactly that, about how and this is a book written in 1856, about how the poor would eat from chestnut trees. And I was like, wow, oh my goodness, that was really a big deal. So it's very interesting. Okay, and this next one is another lamplighter book, The Treasure of the Secret Cove by Amy Lefauve. This one I just read to myself. Yes, I enjoyed this one a lot. This one had several different elements to it. So the main character was Una, and she had grown up kind of a-religious and pretty much allowed to do whatever she wanted. So she had some small education, but otherwise her guardian just wanted her to, I don't know, whatever fancy, whatever interests, she just did her own thing. And then, but kind of his dying request was that she marry his friend that he'd been, or his partner that he'd been working with. And so she did that, and he didn't tell her why, But the main thing was she had a living father, and he didn't want her father to take advantage of her because, yeah, he was a drunk. And basically after she got married and the guy died, her guardian died, he did come around at some point and start trying to take advantage of her and bringing, bad guests to the house. Basically scaring her and being very badly behaved. But anyways, this book had so many interesting things. So they get married, but they kind of consider it a marriage of, I don't know, convenience, or they basically both agree at the outset that they're just going to get married for the formality of it, and they're not going to, she's not going to change in any kind of way, and she's still going to be able to do whatever she wants and not basically pay any attention to him in reference to her daily life. And anyways, through the story, God is kind of working on both of their hearts and bringing them closer together. And then they live in this seaside town, so it's like a fisher village, and they're kind of like the only, I don't know, like higher class family, and the rest of them are just poor fishermen who are on the they just all go out to sea every day to fish. The picture on the cover here, which this is a beautiful like raised picture, but it has this lifeboat, and so this is like the desire of her heart and like a vision she's had for her whole life, is to help build this lifeboat to help rescue people, because they live in this cove where so many people wash up and get they crash on the rocks out there, and then the people wash up and all their cargo washes up. And it really shows some of the depravity of the human heart, because most of the fishermen there like it when it happens, because they feel like it's their right to have all that stuff that washes up, even to the point where they are not helping people who are washing up not dead yet. They'll just pickpocket them not even dead and then leave them to die, which is reminds me of the Good Samaritan story, which they're not being the Good Samaritan, but the people who walked by, like the Samaritan and the Levite who walked by, they didn't even check to see if he was dead or alive. They just, some of their rules were they would be unclean and wouldn't be able to like go to Sabbath if they touched a dead thing, a dead body, a dead animal. And so they didn't want to risk being unclean, but they didn't even check to see if he was dead or alive, the man who was beaten and left for dead, because they didn't want to inconvenience themselves. So they weren't even willing to render help to somebody who wasn't dead yet. So that's what this is like. So she's building this lifeboat in secret with a few people that do care to help people instead of just stealing from them after they're dead. Anyway, so there's several things that are working out through the story. There's a lot of action and adventure, and she and her husband, their hearts are becoming softer and more caring. And I highly recommend this. It's a really good story. It really surprised me with how many elements it brought into it. I liked it a lot. Okay, the next one we read was The Enchanted Castle by E. Nesbit. Can't even see the whole title, but yeah, The Enchanted Castle. Me and my son audiobooked this from the library. Well, we got the audiobook and the physical book. We looked at the pictures in this one, but this was just a cool book. This was, I believe, my first by E. Nesbit, and we really enjoyed it. It's some children, and they find this castle, and they find this like magic ring that they, I think it like makes them invisible sometimes, and it gives them wishes other times, but all of their wishes go bad, basically. So it's like not well, here's one example. The youngest boy, who might be like 8 or something, he wishes that he was rich at some point. A lot of times they'll just like be wearing the ring and they'll wish something offhand. So like they were saying something about somebody rich, and he was like, oh, I wish I was rich. And then he like turned into an old man, and then he like went to his business in London, and he like went to the stock exchange. So he was like rich, but he like totally changed until the magic wore off in a day or something. But so a lot of them were like that. They were very silly, and they would get into scrapes, I guess. But it was a cool story. I really enjoyed it. It was very imaginative. A lot of different things happened. At first it was an invisible ring, and they each had a turn being invisible, but whenever they wanted to take the ring off and stop being invisible, they couldn't. Like they weren't in control of that. So yeah, it was kind of reminiscent of the ring in The Hobbit. So not the kind of darker context in Lord of the Rings, where the ring, I don't know, where it got more serious, but in The Hobbit, it kind of fell into his keeping, and then also had the aspect of the in full sunlight, you could see their shadow, so they had to stay out of sun if they wanted to actually be fully invisible, which was the same in The Hobbit, so I thought that was interesting. Okay, speaking of The Hobbit, the next one here is A Hobbit, a Wardrobe, and a Great War by Joseph LeConte. This one was so cool. This was a story of Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and World War I, and their, how they interacted with that, and what it was like for them. It talked about the ideas of the time and how the war affected writers and people of the time, and how Lewis and Tolkien really stood against what a lot of other writers were like. And it talks about religion and how, C.S. Lewis was an atheist and he became a Christian, and Tolkien was a Catholic throughout, and their friendship and how they interacted, and all of it was very interesting. And it had some letters from different people for part of it. So it's kind of like a double biography, history of the war and how it affected their writings. It was very, very interesting, very good. I liked it a lot. My husband also listened to it. We got an audiobook, and then we were looking at the book some too. But it was very good. Okay, the next two books are The Hatchet by Gary Paulson and The River by Gary Paulson. And I audiobooked both of these, and then I was marking places that I liked in the books. I own these two books. I'd read Hatchet when I was in 5th grade, and I really enjoyed it, so I wanted to see what it was like. And then I'd never read The River, but that's it says the riveting companion to Hatchet, so it's supposed to be the sequel to it. And yeah, I enjoyed those. I liked the survivalist aspect, and then some of his thoughts, and yeah, I enjoyed it. It was such an interesting story. I felt like a couple of places it might have said, kind of used God in a disrespectful way, but then later on, it was more like he was learning to pray and to be thankful for God's help. So, like, here was a part where he said, "Thank you," he whispered, and realized when he said it that it was another kind of prayer, and that he was grateful not just for the river, the current, the movement, but the other thing as well. Coming through the night with Derek, grateful that he had made it. Thank you. So that was from The River. I just thought that was cool. Let's see. A couple other ones I wanted to mention were, I listened to The Tech-Wise Family by Andy Crouch, and yeah, that was good, very interesting, talking about, technology and how to deal with it in family life, how to make it not be so controlling and all-consuming. People that work at Apple, they don't let their kids, or I shouldn't say just Apple, but like Silicon Valley, they don't let their kids have access to electronics because they know how addictive it is. That's what their business model is. So that was very interesting. There's another one that's by his daughter that's called The Tech-Wise, My Tech-Wise Life, I think. So her growing up with him, making some of these rules and limitations, which are really freedoms for children. Yeah, and how she liked that, and I guess what it was like. So I'm interested in reading that one too. Another one that I audiobooked was What to Listen For in Music by Aaron Copland. I thought that one was very interesting. I feel like I did not understand all of it, almost like it's a foreign language. You can't learn everything there is to learn about what to listen for in music real quick. But something that I got out of it was to make sure that I'm listening thoughtfully and intentionally, not just like put music on in the background of other things that I'm doing while my mind is scattered here and there, but to actually think and ponder and try to listen for multiple voices that are happening in the music. There can be just way too many to listen to, but he said 3. You should be able to listen to 3. Like if there's an orchestra, you should be able to hear 3 different voices, so instruments, or like one kind of most people hear the melody, but then hearing some other kind of depth to it as well. So that's something that I'll try and stretch my mind to be able to do. I don't know if I do that all the time or not, but I thought that was really, really cool. I talked about kind of the history too of music and how simple it used to be and how it changed over time, which I guess I never realized that people didn't used to know how to harmonize. It used to be everybody would sing the same thing. Maybe some of the older ones were like Gregorian chants or very percussion rhythmic elements. So it was very interesting. I do recommend that one. And then the last one I've got here is The Complete Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. We finished the 7th book, The Last Battle, and my son was like, well, he was sad. He was like, can we read it again? And I'm like, maybe in a little while, like maybe not right away. But yes, we will definitely read this again. They were beautiful. We read them about over the last year. I would spread them out. When we would finish one, I'd like take a break and read, this or that, something else to mix them in. But yeah, it was very good. All right. That is my list for January. So thanks so much. Bye.